Hello and welcome. This is Enlightened Connections, a space where unseen threads are illuminated between people and spirit, between animals and their humans, and between the everyday and the extraordinary. I'm your host, Lisa Aston Michael, medium, healer, and animal communicator. And I invite you each week to join me as I share conversations and practices that bring light, healing, and connection into your world. So welcome everybody, and thank you once again for tuning in to Enlightened Connections. My guest today has lived a life filled with twists, transformations, and deep listening, not just to others, but to the world around us. Nancy began her career as a registered nurse, but after surviving a life-altering trauma, her path led somewhere unexpected into the world of intuition, healing, and psychic investigation. For over 40 years, she worked as a psychic detective alongside law enforcement, with several of her cases featured on Netflix, Amazon, and other media. She's also a medical intuitive, an animal communicator, a minister, and the author of 3 books, including The Life of a Psychic Detective and Soul Detective. Whether she's blessing a wedding, helping someone reconnect with a lost pet, or guiding people through their own inner storms, her mission is simple: to help others learn to trust themselves deeply, no matter what life brings, because that's where absolute clarity and healing begin. Welcome, Nancy Orlen Weber.
I can't thank you enough for inviting me. I'm so excited to speak with you, Lisa. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome, and it's my pleasure. There's so much to speak to you about today. I'll start with that you began your career as a registered nurse, and that's pretty much rooted in science and care. But after surviving a life-altering trauma, your path shifted dramatically. Can you take us back to that turning point? What changed within you, and how did you begin trusting the intuitive side of yourself?
That's a lot. So let me start back a little bit. The intuition was always something I was curious about, but never really put it together. But as a young nurse, I was able to see things. I thought that's why you go into the field, and doctors loved it. And so it was me seeing inside a body sometimes, but I still didn't understand. When I was 18 when I graduated nursing school. So at 25, I was married to a physician, and he was on a fellowship in Puerto Rico. There was a laboratory for split brain studies. And I was 5 months pregnant when he attempted to murder me. And he would have, had I not quickly went limp and dropped to the floor, pretending I was dead. And he didn't check. He figured he was strong, I wasn't. When I got up, I was different, totally. But I also had a very odd experience. 9 months pregnant, I gave birth, and I didn't have a good time from the time he tried this, obviously. And after giving birth, 2 weeks later, I was born and dying. So when I got back, because I didn't listen to anybody, I was given 8 hours to live, and 72 hours later, I signed myself out because I didn't want my baby with him. Having an attempted murderer raise my kid was a no-no. So I got myself off the bed, got home, was still very sick, but I didn't care. I figured my anger would get me through, and my love for my child. I had a woman show up on my bed when my husband went to work. It was a spirit, because I met her later on, years later, at a lecture that I was invited to. Those 2 things. I stayed working as a nurse as soon as I could because I had to leave him, kick him out. And, it's at a time where laws were very different. There was no protection for domestic violence and all that. But I was protecting my child and me, and I got tough. So that was the seed, but it didn't grow. It was I'd say uh, subliminal for a while, where it was beneath the surface, but it was feeding me at the same time.
Mm.
Independence, independence, independence. And my last job a few years later was not too long later, working in an acute psych unit that was an experimental. That's where I found myself, where I got to know how I didn't call it psychic, I didn't have a word for it, but how I could see through the illusions completely. A hallucination, I could see what it represented. I could help them break through. We didn't need many drugs there. It was experimental. And that taught me. So there were pivotal moments again and again and again, breaking me away from being in any kind of box that I had been in. Need for acceptance. Didn't care anymore. And bless everybody there at the unit. They loved everything I did. And no matter who, from the director of psychiatry for New York State to the director of the unit, to the supervisor of nursing, to Health and Hospital Corporation, who offered me the top post and all education I wanted for free. And I turned everything down and left. But leaving was just, I'm done. I didn't think of the words intuition and psychic, like you're saying. And I know that all of us, when we stop, did we stop and say, oh, I'm very intuitive, or I'm psychic, or clairvoyant, or clairaudient? You didn't. And I know you have the abilities. So I'm looking at you and going, well, we all have our pivotal moments, but I see them as seeds being planted along the way. And finally, it just says, enough, whatever's going on, I have to find out.
Right.
Right? And so I had no idea, even when I left, what I would do. But it was hysterical when I look back and go, no money, totally permanently disabled because of how he injured my spine, had a child, had a next partner I took on, guy, who I later married when I was pregnant. And I'm looking at all that and going, you were a nut. you, you had no clue.
Actually, I think you were incredibly brave.
Didn't think that at all. Didn't care. I think you reach a point. I think many of us reach a point, and I know that's what it takes for you to do your thing, right? Same thing. And so I reached the point where I truly didn't care what anybody thought about what I was doing. I was here. But I also think that I died during that 8 hours they gave me to live. I died once, but that was a reaction to the IV drug.
Right.
And they brought me right back. And so I think the fact that I was given 8 hours to live, more than I died once, was so relevant to, I'm done, I do whatever I feel like doing. Because I was given more time. Everything beyond that 8 hours was a gift in my mind. But I was still shy, I was still quiet. But then I had a lot of fun once I left. Because I loved raising kids and I loved being creative, and I never thought of myself as creative. Next thing I know, I'm creating things and people are walking in my house, friends, and go, oh, can you make one for me? I'll pay you. That's how I started my practice. Not as a psychic, but as making zucchini breads and selling them, and work shirts embroidered and tie-dye shirts in the 70s.
Yeah. You know, I was just thinking back to what we were talking about before we started this chat. And we're talking about, you know, the current status of where we are in the world right now and what's happening, and that wounds have to come to the surface before they can heal. And everything that the journey that you've just taken us on, to me, I'm seeing the wound, the infection, the pain, the ick, and then the healing. You know, it's remarkable when we look back on our lives, and some journeys are far more challenging and difficult than others, of course. But it just seems that that's sometimes, not in all cases, of course, but especially when it comes to healers, we seem to have that experience ourselves. It seems like we have to, we've gone down the rabbit hole, the abyss. We've felt the feels. We've walked the talk. We've done the journey. And I'm not really 100% sure, but I kind of feel that that's what makes the strong healer, opposed to those that are born with it, or, those that have the smooth journey. Maybe I'm nuts, because I really think that taking the tough road is the best road. I really do, because what you become, who you become, and what you can be for others, you just have to walk that rickety bridge, don't you?
I love how your vision of everything is so clean and clear and digestible to listen to and feel.
Yeah.
And so I'm listening to that and going, she knows.
Yeah,
Of course she knows.
she knows. She's gone down that hole a few times.
I think we're all born with our soul senses, the clairvoyance, the clairaudient. We're all born with them, and we don't name them at that point. The more we seek approval, the more we don't explain it to them, don't mention it maybe. I would blurt it out as a child, what I saw and what I knew, but I didn't. I knew I wasn't approved of, but I didn't know that that's why I wasn't approved of.
Yeah, and we kind of feel like we're the odd ducks as kids. We're not really sure, but we don't really realize what's going on. This is all about you, not me. But just very quickly, I had a conversation. I was interviewed by a lovely woman a couple of weeks ago, and I was telling her about, as a child, when my mum would take me to parties. You go to kids' parties, and I'd always take off, and I'd just find a dog, any dog, big, small, doesn't matter. I'd just find a dog, and I'd hang out with the dog, and I would converse with that dog and have the best time. And we'd go for walks, and people would be going, "Oh my God, where's my dog?" And I've just gone somewhere with it and come back later, But that to me was perfectly normal. And it's what you're saying about, you don't say, "Oh, all of a sudden I'm a psychic. All of a sudden I'm a this." It's just a natural, organic progression that you don't even witness until you look back on it and you go, "Geez, I don't belong in that group of people anymore. I don't enjoy those things I used to do anymore. I can't converse with those people anymore," because it's not that anyone is any better than anybody else, but the conversations, that the frequency is different, and you start to draw people of that same frequency to yourself, But your work, I find it quite interesting that many nurses find themselves working with spirit, if not at that time, at a later date.
Well, many nurses see death in their practice. And many times we're the ones right there.
Yeah.
Very much like a hospice,
Yeah. Yeah.
Natural healing. You recognize that there's more to it than anyone thinks. But having early on, I wonder if that's part of it. I had a lot of people I loved come to me as they died, in my sleep, in my waking time. I saw death coming a year before for a friend. Never said it, but it was so shocking. And I wondered how I knew. I guess the odd part when you're talking about how different we are from everyone else, or we think we are. A lot of people, when they talk, they feel like they either were part of the group or not part of the group, right? I was never part of any group. And I wasn't allowed to have animals.
Oh, wow. That would be hard for you.
Very. Oh, yeah. I played with the ants.
And they're always busy.
In my backpack. They were adorable, and they were so smart.
Yeah.
And I loved them. I watched them, and they would crawl on my head. But they were very busy, and they all got along. There was no war. There was no nothing, And so that seed was planted. So there were a lot of different seeds along the way, I'd say.
Yeah.
And I always think that we're planting seeds. We just don't know it until it grows enough that we can see what it's about. Just like you said about the companion you would choose. I would choose a book in Brooklyn and a corner. Any
Right.
corner would do, or my ballet shoes. And the only time I wasn't uncomfortable was dancing. I didn't care who saw it or didn't, but I would dance anywhere and everywhere, which is strange thinking I was so shy I would hide behind people.
Yeah.
So that when you talk about the huge bumps in the road for all of us, right?
Mm.
It's what really makes us capable, I think, of handling things that can be super uncomfortable to handle. And I think if we looked at people who can work with the tough stuff, no matter what it is, you'll find that they too have some of it. I would imagine they'd have to. How do you live with it otherwise?
I don't know. Human strength, is just phenomenal. That leads me into my next question, actually. You work as a psychic detective. Now,
Yes, ma'am.
okay, so how do you what does that work look like behind the scenes for you? And how do you kind of navigate the responsibility and the emotional weight of those investigations on both sides, on
Got it.
the legal
Mhm.
and the spirit you're working with people?
As a nurse, I had to take an oath. As a nurse, you work on some very tough stuff, and you're not allowed to, well, you're not allowed to discuss it openly with everybody else, their names, or it's just not appropriate. Ethics, integrity. And you also witness death, sometimes very gruesome. Sometimes they throw up on you while they're dying. I've witnessed in an emergency room, and I worked in ICU years and years ago. And I remember getting in an elevator for my 5-minute break to get some kind of protein bar. In the elevator, in comes somebody on a stretcher with their blood gushing up to the ceiling. And I go, it's mine. And I have to go back up with them. No break that night. I think that is the parallel to law enforcement work. I brought teamwork in. I was a team worker in nursing, whether I was the supervisor or at 20, I became a supervisor because I didn't see any difference. It's just more accountability, more responsibility, and I loved it. So when the law enforcement came calling, one, I saw it as teamwork. I want to know why you want me in it because I'm not trained, right?
Mhm.
And they said, well, if we have too many leads or nothing, we need help. Oh, okay. And that was just okay. Same thing like stepping into an ICU where I was alone with 8 patients and no training in ICU, all the machinery. So they just threw us in sometimes. And so I think that that helped me adjust to what was happening in law enforcement. One, I became a member of the team right away. And part of that is I don't think of me as a psychic or special. I think I am a tool like everyone in the team. We all have different tools. This is mine. But I also found that I was a very good observer in detail because I love solving things, right? And then when things in my life didn't have justice, this gave me an opportunity to feel like I'm doing some difference for somebody. So it all blended well and continued to blend well. And now if I get a call from a state trooper somewhere in the country or another country, I answer the call. I don't argue the point. I simply have to explain to the public I'm the same as the people I've worked with, and some of them I know now 44 years. They're my friend, 46 years. They're my buddies. As a minister, I've blessed their grandchildren. So I love all this. How do any of us sleep the same way a detective does when they find a dead child and they have to stay there and work the case and not throw up and not cry, because it's the same thing as a nurse to me. Somebody dies, I have to sit there with their relatives and let them cry. I can't cry with them. That's not fair to them.
Mm.
I'll cry at home.
I understand that. I get that.
Right? Right? So I don't see, it's such a parallel. You step in. And my first nursing teacher taught me something I use with the police. When you go to work, you put all your troubles aside and you walk in and do the work. When you come out, if you want, pick it up. Pick up your other stuff that you're thinking of, your list in your head, or how horrible it was, or leave it alone. And I always think I make a bridge afterwards where I take time out. I don't think of anything else. I may watch a movie. I may do some simple things. I've always done this. And then I will either put on music and pick up some pad to draw, artwork, something that gets me out totally away. Like it's moving inside a million miles away from where I had been. Different world.
Yeah.
So we can create different views of the world, right?
Yeah. I'm curious, and I think the listeners might be curious, to do the work of a psychic detective. Do you see behind the eyes of the victims, or do you sense more in a, I guess, a claircognizant way of a knowing of what's happened, or how do you receive what's happened?
No two are alike ever. So one of them, I became the killer. That was the first case I ever worked on. I walked like him, and they went back and got a confession. Another case, I saw the fingerprint on a lamb. That was a burglary in my own home. And I saw how it happened through the eyes of my dog. Another case, I saw it through the eyes of the victim, many. And others, I saw through the eyes of a killer. Both. Actually, I saw it through both ends. So in the serial killer work, I saw it first through the eyes of the deceased, both of them. And then I saw it through the eyes of the killer when I wanted to know, I needed a profile
Right.
of the killer. And that's how I would do it. I would become them to feel what's going on. So in another case, I was sitting with the detective in the car and I'm going, he has a wavy eye. And that's why he kind of exploded all at once, because he was the kid who nobody wanted to be near. And he had problems with his family, but he was attached to his father very dearly. And the detective saying, who cares? I said, I do, because then I know where he's at. And I know where he is, and I know where the evidence is, and I could draw it right now for you. And I did. So for me, I had to draw up the profile, knowing who that was. He's in prison for life. I don't think he died yet in prison, but few of them did.
I think your nursing background, as I'm sort of piecing this all together, gave you the skin to deal with what you see, because I would imagine, for a person who's never experienced seeing a dead body or seeing somebody in the throes of death or whatever, to, suddenly wake up one morning and realize they're a forensic medium or something, it'd be quite the shock, wouldn't it? So it's all piecing together. Your life is all, everything that you've shared. I can see the journey. I can actually see the journey that you've been on, and that what's led you to this. And to say it feels to me unquestionably divinely guided is almost offensive from what you've experienced in your life. But you made it. You made it. And it almost feels to me again that the child that you fought so hard for, in a sense, makes me feel like that saved you as well. You were saving your child, but it was very much a simpatico relationship, wasn't it?
Very.
At the right time, although you don't think that at the time, of course, you think the exact opposite. But what what a journey! Oh my goodness me! I could talk to you alone for days on this work that you do and your life. I want to move forward a little bit now. I did want to ask you, do you teach this? Do you teach?
Yes, matter of fact, I have a beginner's psychic
My
investigator.
guides has just said, ask her this question because I'm like, I want to ask, I want to ask, I want to ask. Don't be rude, don't be rude. And they're going, just ask. Do you teach?
I have some amazing younger by far than me, even though one has 30 years of experience as a detective and another one 20 years, and then one who was retired and became a top end PI. They're in my advanced psychic investigators class.
Right.
And I do workshops on that and animal communication. Mediumship is always part of knowing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And sometimes when you talk about just different techniques, I think that the soul has all these senses and it's more preference than anything else. It's what I prefer. I love working with photos, for instance, because I work online a lot.
Yeah, yeah. All my work, all my animal communication and energy healing work is all remote. It's all photos. I don't know if you find this, Nancy, but I find if you work face to face and the person's around, the energy is just smushy. It's very hard to distinguish because they bring their stuff. People bring their stuff.
Oh,
And
sure they do.
yeah, and you're wanting to work with the animal who's always very clear and succinct. And the
Mhm.
people are there with their energy going,
Ah, that's an interesting point. But I think working with the detectives and working as a nurse, I've learned to isolate the smush around
yeah.
without even considering. I don't consider them, and I tell them sometimes.
Yeah, that's great. That's
And
great.
so, well, that gets back to mediumship too. Somebody, a 24-year-old, had an accident and died. And the couple, the parents, knew one of the detectives I work with. So they were here like 2 days later and they were a wreck. And I knew I couldn't get through as a medium hearing them as they were.
Yeah.
So I offered them a blend I use of essential oils that helps support the nervous system. And as soon as I did that and gave them about a minute of deep breathing, very simple, she came through right away because I
Beautiful.
knew that was the energy was taking over everywhere and it just couldn't do that. But I understand that more about people when a guy would come here once and his arms are crossed and he's sitting there and goes, "So tell me something." And I go, "Nope." And he goes, "Why?" I go, "Well, I'm not here to be tested, so you can leave or you can relax. And this is the messages I get. And so you're not in charge of that. You're in
Right.
charge of you. But if you stay closed, you'll get nothing out of it. You're wasting your time, my time."
Yeah.
And so he did. He opened up immediately and thought, "Oh, she doesn't play. This isn't fun. I have to be real."
Yeah. We always get the testers and the skeptics, don't we?
Once in a while. Yep.
You know,
But I think of that as a challenge to that it is a test. But whatever, saying, "Can you handle more?"
I think it's a
Like,
great test for us too. I
yeah.
work as a medium, and I know that when I'm tested, it's great because it makes me check in my ego and see, hold on a minute, divine power is always at our request. Spirit will never let you down. And if you're having issues about, oh, what if I don't do this and what if I fail and what if I don't tell them that's ego. So it's like, oops, you better wait out the door there and let spirit take over this session. Yeah. Nancy, you also communicate with animals and you help people to reconnect with lost pets. This is a funny question, but what, if anything, have animals taught you about intuition and trust that maybe humans have forgotten about?
That is a very natural event. Totally. Completely and totally. They taught me years and years ago, and it was at the same time I'm putting things together, and it was obvious that everything is connected. There is nothing that isn't, because they determine who they want to be with, when they want to be with us. They understand our moods. They understand all of it. My history with them even reading one in particular, after I became comfortable enough for doing things, I got called in photo of a dog deceased by the woman companion. And I looked at it and I started talking with the dog, and it goes, I loved all the outfits she got for me, and I loved wearing them. And I'm thinking, this is crazy, right? Okay, well, go along with it. And I'm telling her about that. And she said, one moment. She gets up and goes to the mantle where she has a small album, a photo album, apparently. She brings it over, opens it up, and there's the dog in every available costume you could imagine, for every holiday, for any day, for going out. And he loved it. And I thought, yeah, we're all wireless. Everything is. We're all biologically part of a planet, which is part of the universe. So who's kidding who? Of course. And I swam with dolphins. I was a scuba diver, stingrays, manta rays. They're smart. They're all smart. That they don't argue. Very few of them ever really fight. They could be predators, but a predator simply means that's what they could eat.
But we're all predators, aren't we?
When I look at that, animals have shown me how friendship works for them too, and how they thank each other. They don't have to be the same species. They don't care. Right? And some of them show up just when we need them. And they are our teachers. One of the books I love, besides the one I wrote, of course, but the one I love and I raised my kids with and read it to them again and again, it's been an imprint, maybe 70 years at least. It's called Kinship with All Life.
By Alan.
You know that one?
Alan Boone. Yeah.
Yes. J. Allen Boone.
That was the first book I read. It was the Bible of Animal Communication. The first book I ever read. I lent it to someone and I can't remember who now, so I'll have to get another copy. Yeah.
I love that one. And then Maui Pao with Language of Wolves was right in the middle of where I was talking to horses for the first time, working with them, and I was in shock. The horse would tell me there's whole stories, and I'd look and go, oh my God, are we such egos that we, that we're the only ones who, and I think, no, because dogs know any language you teach, any language.
Yeah.
How could people think it's tough for some of us to know more than one language? So, but they're much smarter about it. They'll pick up any command because they're willing to stretch.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're fascinating, of course, but they're all our family.
I had a very strange experience with some horses in a paddock a few years back. I was just standing there watching them, as you do. You lean up against the fence and just watch them because it's so peaceful to watch them graze. And I softened my eyes, and all of a sudden the whole paddock and the tree line behind it started shimmering, and everything was shimmering. And I thought, okay, who's put something in my coffee this morning? What's going on? And I thought, I'm just going to sit with it. And it was the strangest thing. It wasn't a feeling of that there was something wrong. It wasn't vertigo or anything, It was just a scene before me that was just shimmering. It was some other dimension and just opened up with the horses. And then all of a sudden, this one horse I just heard without hearing, as you know what that is. She's coming for me. And I'm looking around. There's no one. There's just horses and me. And the next thing I see is way up the end is the paddock gate. And there was a kind of tension and a tenseness when I felt these words. And here was this chestnut backing and forthing at the gate. And I yelled out to this chap that was walking towards me. I said, she's going to break that gate down and come in and fight with this horse. And he said, no, she won't. And I said, I think she will. Well, that's exactly what happened. She burst through the gate, came straight to that mare and bit her a beauty right on the withers. And it was very unattractive and very unpleasant. But I thought, gee, what happened? What just happened then? I'd kind of entered some sort of I don't know, some sort of dimension. It reminds me a little of when you were saying that you had the vision of your friend passing a year before he passed. It's just something unlocks, something opens ever so momentarily. For what reasons I don't know. Maybe it just is.
I think sometimes, like your experience, tells you and teaches you that you were in the right place at the right time, because it also confirmed for you that there's more to everything than,
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
before, but also a healer's energy of comfort, whether you actually can interfere or not physically, you can spiritually,
Mm.
right? So I find that that's part of it. And there's a trust that builds, not only a trust from the horse to you that you understood him,
Yeah.
because they could feel you telling the other person, watch out, it's going to
Mm.
happen.
Mm.
And so they know they got through to you. But you also knew that you were a haven for a moment for that baby.
Mm. Have
Right?
you had a specific experience with communicating with an animal that's really stood out for you? Something that's just
Sure.
been, you probably got loads, but if there's one
Yeah.
specifically.
Okay. So I love this one only because I had a lot of fun. I was working in a paddock. I've worked in several states, so I can't remember which. But anyhow, I was working there and called in, and this particular thoroughbred male was maybe the 12th I had seen that day. And people were walking with me in a vet. Anyhow, I asked to let me into the stall. Don't take the horse out of the stall. So I go in the front and I just stand there with him very quietly. I don't do anything. I just wait for my soul to make sure that my love is sent in very clearly, and just keep waiting until he knows I mean it, and I trust the love will be felt. I want him to know I'm a safe haven. I'll never hurt you, and I won't do anything you don't want me to do. Once I felt that way, I started very, very slowly putting my hands near him, showing him who I am. I wouldn't move around. I stayed very quiet and very gentle. So if I lifted my hands, so time goes on, dead silence everywhere. And eventually I am massaging his jaws. I feel like his TMJ was locked, probably floated teeth wrong or something. And I just had so much fun massaging. I love doing that, right? And then I heard him say, "Oh, God, it's so much better. Can you brush my hair, my mane?" And so I called out for a brush. Next thing I know, I get one in my hand. I've never brushed them before in my life. I've never ridden a horse still. And I go and I'm brushing his mane, and I'm talking with him, and I'm hugging him, and he's putting his head in my shoulder, and he closes his eyes, and I continue. And then I know I have to leave, but I don't want to. And so I kiss him, and he's melting, right? And I can feel it. And I go, "You're always in my heart. I love you so." And I walk out, and there's still dead silence. I go, "Why are you all so quiet? What's going on?" And they said, "Well, we couldn't brush his mane for a year. And we had to safeguard ourselves to even clean the stall because he wanted to kill us." And I looked at him, I said, "I guess if I had a migraine for a year, I would be feeling that way too." Because that's what I felt from him. He was like so locked up his skull. That was horrible. So yes, my baby. They're all for me, it's kind of a funny thing to be in a position where I feel like a friend once said, "We're Mother Earth." I don't know, but I feel like we're accountable and we're responsible to love and share that kind of love as a safe haven. And I think that's why I can get to killers. I'm not judging them at the time because you can't.
Mm. Mm.
How are you getting to a killer who can shield, obviously,
Mm.
but love has different. If they can feel not just, I love you, I love their soul. I don't love what you did. I may not even like you in person, but I've been to death row, and actually I like the people I spoke with. They were nice people.
Mm.
And I thought, oh my God, what the hell was wrong with you doing what you did and getting involved, right?
Yeah.
And I would say that because I'd be so comfortable with them. I wouldn't have to, you know, make it a
Yeah.
game or be frightened. And I thought the same way of the serial killer, that one that I worked with that is known. There are others, I can't. But when I did, I was more curious about what makes that person turn into that, right? Where does it come from? Is it in utero? Is it past lives? Is it genetics? Is it childhood abuse? There was Dorothy Otnow, there's a 5-year study on death row, I think it was. And she said most of them were either neurologically damaged in utero or at birth, or seriously abused early in life. And I'm going, well, I know lots of people who had that, and they aren't killers. I mean, I don't get it, but that's why I like profiling.
I think, as you say, there's probably a combination of things, isn't it? Nature versus nurture and that sort of thing. And I did a little bit of research on psychopaths. I'm quite interested in the criminal mind. I don't know why. Even as a teenager, I liked jails. I liked going to jails. And it wasn't because from a macabre point of view, I just found the energy quite interesting and why people did what they did. And it seems to be all sorts of reasons, really. A child can grow up, come into the world a joyful little being, and then, of course, things happen to create that pain and anger, and pain's always behind it in whatever form, isn't it? But it's just fascinating, isn't it? There's so many parallels with behaviors, whether it be animal or whether it be human or whatever it is. I'm just reading this last question that I have here, and it really doesn't, I don't think I can ask it because I think we've just talked about so many things and it doesn't even make sense anymore to me, this question. But, I would ask, if you had one message for the world at this time, what would it be?
The message for the world would simply be, accept yourself in every possible way. Because I think that the lack of loving life itself breeds harm to the whole planet, to the pollution of the earth itself, to the neighbors, to the birds, to the air. When we fully accept who we are as a gift of life, we will make the best of it. And we will forgive ourselves first before we even think of that word for anything. We will accept who we are, the whole range of it. I think it is so important that we start deeper inside, knowing ourselves and not rejecting any part whatsoever that we find. We are not all angels. We come with a full spectrum of things that we can feel guilty, we can feel shame, we can feel hate, we can feel love, we can feel it all. But until we accept ourselves, nothing changes here. We have a rippling effect. Everyone does. It's not the people in power that you see. That's the overt, most obvious, but that's not the power. The power came from the rippling effect, granting others egos to be fed. And that is the hatred of oneself. And that is the unforgiving of oneself. That is the hidden, as Carl Jung would talk about, the shadow self. So when we decide to accept that shadow, when we take a look at what we've done and go, whoops, that wasn't so good, I want to leave one other thought. Greek language translated to English is kind of crazy at times. The word psychic means soul in Greek. It comes from mythology and psyche and others, and shikaiko is another. And so they spelled it as psychic, not soul, but that's what it means in Greece. Evil is not an Aramaic word. It was not a Greek word. It means live, spelled backwards. And it is not that people are evil. It's called sort of mistakes and errors. So we make a lot of errors when we're in trauma, don't we?
Yeah.
And I would say, as somebody who's made a lot of mistakes and a lot of errors and has known what shame and guilt is, and hatred and anger and righteous anger and everything else, and injustice and justice, everybody, love your life. Love your life. What a difference it will make in your life and in all life.
That's profound advice. Nancy, I want to let people know where they can get a hold of you. So if people want a copy of your books or to get in touch with you for the many arms that you provide, your website is nancyorlenweber.com and you're on Instagram at Nancy372, at Facebook on Nancy Orlen Weber, and YouTube is Soul Talk with Nancy Orlen Weber, all one word. I'm going to put these links in your episode notes as well. Nancy, it has been, I'm struggling for the word here. It's been educational, it's been uplifting, it's been beautiful, it's been dark, it's been a journey. This conversation with you today, it's been truly wonderful, and I thank you. I thank you for your time, for your wisdom and for your knowledge, and I look forward to speaking with you again in the future.
And Lisa, it is rare to have somebody who is very similar. I can't thank you enough because the conversation is enlightening. Now I know why you call it what you call it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Nancy, thanks so much.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you so much for being here and tuning into Enlightened Connections. I truly hope today's episode offered you something to reflect on, expand into, or feel more deeply connected to, whether within yourself or with the animals and spirit world around you. If you enjoyed this conversation, please follow or subscribe to the show and share it with someone you feel may benefit from it as well. It's one of the most supportive ways you can help this podcast reach more hearts, more homes, and more animal lovers. And if you'd like to stay connected in between episodes, come join me inside the Enlightened Connections podcast Facebook community. I'd absolutely love to have you there. Until next time, take gentle care, stay connected, and trust the whispers.